Immaculata Conceptio est Mori, Sancte Mariae
You know, I was told by an elder attorney when I was doing this, he said, not at this, but in law, he said, the most important thing is when you go into court, know your subject, but act like you know what you're doing. That's a very serious thing. I took that to heart, but in preparing, you always want to be prepared. So I first want to extend a welcome here to Menlo Park, Corpus Christi area, to Vallombrosa particularly. It's wonderful to see everybody here participating in the joy of community and fellowship and enjoying Mass together in prayer. It's a wonderful time. So there is a certain joy in coming together that we need to take the time and talk and visit. So really encourage that. We have some business to get through. We will get through it, but don't let that detract you from enjoying the company of the folks that we're here with and getting to know one another and being a part of this fellowship, which we call the Dominican Lady, the third order, in which we become part of this mighty order that belongs to Jesus Christ under the charisms of St. Dominic. And it's wonderful to see your faces and to be a part of this in so much time. So I'm going to turn it over to get started with Father Augustine. I'm not going to do that.
He's learning.
Yeah, I've been reminded several times that.
Pronunciation.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Come, Holy Spirit, and inspire the hearts of your faithful who meet in chapter today and this weekend. And as Dominicans, as we are called to holy preaching, as we meet together in chapter, help us in our preaching of the Word made flesh. Help us in preaching Jesus Christ, who remains with us in all ways. And help us in our preaching of Jesus Christ, who lifts up the lowly, fills the hungry with good things, and gives those promises to his faithful that he himself will fulfill. We ask you to bless us with these promises, in our promises of our life to you. Bless us with these promises that Christ will remain with us always. And we ask you to bless us in chapter as we meet under the mantle of our Blessed Virgin Mary, our Mother, as we say, Hail Mary,
full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
St. Dominic,
Pray for us.
St. Catherine,
Pray for us.
all of our Dominican saints and blesseds.
Pray for us.
St. Anne and St. Joachim.
Pray for us.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
I'm going to speak up. It's just here. Can you hear it? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Is the microphone working?
Sort of.
No. All right. And just pull out your agenda from your package. And the agenda is just for the weekend. I'll go through that briefly here. We've already been through some of it. And what we're going to do tonight, one of the things that I'm very happy about, is bringing in a new chapter fully tonight. We'll discuss that a little bit later. And in reviewing this agenda, just wanted you to know that it's the best I could put it together in a sense. If there's something else that you think should be considered, dive in and bring it up.
I'd like to consider that the next thing on the agenda is the roll call.
The roll call. Oh, we have to do that. Alejandro. Do the roll. You have it? Go ahead.
Okay, Phoenix, Arizona, Chris.
Quinten.
Mesa, Frankville.
Here are the cheap seats.
St. Mary Magdalene Chapter, Abby.
Present.
St. Pius V, Jim.
He's not here.
No. Okay. St. Martin de Porres, Gilbert.
Here.
St. Margaret of Costello.
David Charles, present.
St. Rosa of Lima, Julie St. Andre. Here. St. Monica, Roger.
Here.
Saint. Okay, so St. Monica, Arlene. Saints Catherine and Vincent, Matt.
Present.
St. Dominic, Eagle Rock, Richie.
Here.
Blessed Pierre Georgia Fossati, Dory.
Here.
Bartolome de las Casas, Franklin.
Here.
Queen of Angels, Logan.
Here.
Corpus Christi, Lorna.
Present.
Blessed Fra Angelico, Vicky.
Present.
Blessed Fra Angelico, Francesco. Server.
Present.
Saint Albert the Great, Sharon.
Here.
Saint Andrew, Rinku.
Here.
Mary, Mother of the Eucharist, William. Saint Dominic, San Diego, Nelson.
Here.
Saint Dominic, San Francisco, John.
Present.
Saint Thomas Aquinas, Dave.
Here.
Saint Albert the Great, Kaya.
Here.
Blessed Bartolongo, Joseph.
Here.
Saint Thomas Aquinas, Jim. Marino. Saint Thomas Aquinas, Firmino, Roger, Dory. Saint Agnes of Montepulciano, Susanna.
Where?
Holy Rosary, Calvin.
Present.
Holy Family, Carrie. Saint Catherine, Nick.
Here.
Our Lady of Victory, Daniel.
Not here.
Blessed Pierre Georgia Fasadi Shane.
Here.
Blessed Sacrament Deacon Carl.
Present.
St. Michael the Archangel Dr. Anthony.
Present.
And then St. Hyacinth from Visalia Rebecca.
She's not.
She's not. Yeah. Yeah. St. John Newman, Mike. And that is Mike. And then LPCEC, Araceli.
Here.
Alejandra. Father Augustine.
Here.
Carolyn. She's here. She's still in work.
She's back there.
Anne.
Here.
Vice President Brian.
Here.
And that's it. Okay.
Thank you. Do you recall the lighting we did this for last year?
If it gets dark, if it's darker, the lights actually look better.
Yeah, it's, okay. Thank you. Yeah, well, I left three things at home. One was two first-class relics, one of St. Dominic, one of St. Margaret and Stella, I still count. And the other one was my bell. That's what I convene whenever I bring things over, but it didn't happen. And also, I had hoped to pack my statue of St. Dominic, but that's, anyway, I want to just tell you, tonight we're going to do the welcome and then the vote on the new chapter, and we'll have compline and adoration. So hoping to pray the rosary tonight to put some time. And then we'll have a gathering afterwards in the dining room for those who want to participate in that. Well, it might, yeah,
Let's get out. John,
You could probably drop wire to that microphone.
yeah.
I know exactly.
Take
Oh, Father makes a good holder.
Yeah. Tomorrow we have breakfast we wake up at 6:45, there's no bells this year. And Lauds at 7:15 with Rosary, Holy Mass at 7:45, breakfast 8:30. So, and then we'll convene here at 9:45 a.m. We'll give you some time to kind of get dinner out, and we'll have prayer and have a report from Father Augustine. And then we're going to do discussion on start the discussion on the provincial directory and kind of go through that. I'll go through some of that tonight and just kind of give you a real quick background on that. And then the minutes. And as you can see I did speak with Helen, the guy who's the editor for the newsletter, and she is going to step aside as the webmaster. We have going to unfold here tomorrow a new website. And the goal of that website will be it is www.opwestlaity.org instead of .com. The other one that she was running had very limited capacity and couldn't build it very easily without her. Actually, we'd have to hire somebody to help do it. This way, as a webmaster, Alejandra will be able to put information in. I will too, as I get information. But the goal is to become a massive resource for the chapter, both information and books. There's a lot of online links, and just be a real solid place that anyone from your chapters can go to. That's the goal, and we'll be able to introduce that tomorrow, probably on the TV. Hopefully, we'll have a connection for that. At any rate, I'll also put up the website as well. And then we'll hear the treasurer's report, we'll do the budget, and get through into some solid documents with regard to both the Formation Commission, particular directory, and some other items of consideration. And a particular directory is a major part of the consideration this weekend, and we'll go through that briefly. But I want to go to what's in the enclosure, what's in the pamphlet. Oh, by the way, you'll see something that Vicki brought. By the way, it's just that, are you a nurse? Are you nurses in your chapter? It's kind of an invitation. And I want to bring that to our attention because sometimes paper can get lost in this shuffle. There's also a couple holy cards, 3 of them, and they're very useful because I don't know if you remember the refrigerator document, and it was a major one, like 11.5 by 8. Well, one's included in here that's a refrigerator document that says your Dominican duties, but yet it's the size of your wallet. And the other one is for use, and you can buy these online, for use in a history record or documentation of someone's reception into the order. It's very important. I still have mine original, and it documents who you are and kind of put it in your books and bookmarks and stuff like that. It's a really neat thing. The next thing I'd like to ask you to look at is in your brochure. Without the light, it's kind of difficult, so I'll explain it to you. The next one is the rules of order. And it's a process. And I'll kind of go through this tomorrow. Why rules of order? So that we can get through the business relatively quick without a lot of diversion. And so the order will go in accordance to the agenda as we present it. And then I will bring up the subject matter and then invite for a motion. A motion will be laid, a second, and then consideration or discussion will open up. So it's very important, and I'm not a strong stickler, but I think it's important because we can get lost into hours of a swamp, so to speak, of this. So motions are critical to this, and like I gave you an example, I moved that we add coffee break to the meeting. Motion was required, a second, and then we can contemplate it through discussion, and then consider it. There are also motions to substitute. If you have time, I don't want to bore you to death, but I also want you to know that there is a process here that we're going to use. This right this year is the largest congregation of folks from the various chapters that we've ever had. So it's the more we get used to this process, the better. I think last year we had like 42, we now have 46. And so it's just part of getting used to a larger organization. It's not like sitting around having coffee with someone. So be aware, we will use those. Next one is the pillars of late Dominican life. This is the refrigerator document. This is one you put on your refrigerator next to your bed. It tells you about your daily duties, weekly duties, duties with regard to the deceased relatives and friends, things like that. Something to pay attention to and that can help remind you of your Dominican life. The next one is, which we'll consider tomorrow, are the minutes from last year. We have to approve those. So I invite you to look them over, and we'll discuss them tomorrow at work and approve, amend, or approve them as well. The next item is the particular directory. And this nice little document, we spent a great deal of time on, but I'll invite you to take a look at it. One thing I want to lay on the table is that I apologize this got to many of the chapters late, but we're literally working on it the night before to finish it. One of the biggest tasks was making sure all the comments came from all the chapters. We looked them over very carefully. We spent a lot of time, Brian, Vicki, and Father Augustine, and myself, mostly these three, did a lot of work online and just going through all the suggestions. We've come together with this one and get into it in more detail. But then too, the procedure on that will be to examine each Roman numeral and go through that gradually. I think it's worthwhile in explanation. The next one is a document I did that, a number of years ago, our personal chapter went through some and I know we all go through it, because we don't always agree with everybody, right? And some of this, I tried to put together some solid sources and advice on what to do when there is kind of a conflict in the chapter. Be it minor, be it major. There's a way to deal with it. And the scriptures are full of conflict. And how did they handle it? How did the saints handle it? And there's answers to those questions. And sometimes, like Barnabas and St. Paul, they just left each other. Because they, we're not built to know it. We're built to love, not necessarily life. So if this is just put in your back pocket, if you don't have time to read it, for future reference. Because we owe it to God to live in accordance with objective truth. That doesn't mean always get along with one another, but how do we get there? And that was the objective of that. The next one is a formula for general absolution. We're going to go through this tomorrow. And it's just a general absolution for transgressions against the rule. One of the things I'm going to be talking about tomorrow is that the rule is key to forming our lives. And I've been reading the Benedict option. Anybody read that? And there was an article called the Dominican Option. But I won't go into it now, but let's take a look, how does that impact our life? And to be honest with you, how does just these few people, how does it impact civilization where you come from? It's an amazing reality of how much impact you have. And in living the rule, you impact all those around you. Because it's not that you're walking around looking pious with prayerful hands all the time. It's your responses, it's your acts, it's your decision making that everybody watches. And your children and your grandchildren and those you work with. It makes a huge difference in our lives. So it's just really important that we focus on that. On the right side of your pamphlet is three things. One is, at least in my order, St. Margaret's Mantle Adoration Apostolate. This was formed by Alana, who's here from Boise, our formation director. And it's a kind of a personal prayer apostolate, and it gives you instruction on how close to prayer online. And she started this last year, and we've had an amazing number of people, I think hundreds of people submitting prayers to pray. And so when you go on there, you pray an Ave for someone or for the whole group of people. And Alana also includes the intention of the Holy Father or just general intention of what's going on in the church generally. But it's accessible to members. St. Margaret Costello the chapter has a prayer list, and we have somebody that runs it. I understand there's somewhere around 800 to 900 people. And if anybody knows Lonnie Fitzpatrick, will immediately know that she's totally active and keeping going. And she moved to Texas, and she still runs it. I'd like to get where we kind of keep her going even among our chapters here, because it's a really powerful prayer list, and it's been important. But this is a connection with not only the chapter, but St. Margaret Costello is an amazing person who is disabled, but very aware of her circumstances and the faith. And so she's a powerful intercessor. It's something I'm really thankful that Lana put together. The other one's the Dominican Litany. And the history of the Dominican Litany is attached to this litany. And it's a very beautiful prayer. I invite you to read it. It comes in where you can reuse it in your chapter. If you look on the back page, it says chapter information. You can type it in there and hand it out as a brochure and use it. And then there should be, I believe there is a brochure called Dominican Laity, our Dominican Way of Life. And this can be used as a brochure too. If you look on the back page in the middle, there's a place for the chapter information as well. Make copies of it, as many as you want, and use it. Because they become very valuable when you're recruiting and trying to get other people to pay attention to what you're doing. And it's a great summary of the Dominican life in these brochures. The next item in your pamphlet is a letter, a copy of the letter. This was kind of a dirt color, so I turned it to gray tint so it could print up more readably. But this was issued by the master of the order on how to use the designation OP and how to use it. And what he's saying here, I believe, I think it's reasonably interpretation, would be to use your salutation of what you are. Mr., Mrs., Ms. if that's what you prefer, or Miss or Master for a young man. And then your name, and then after that, comma, O period, P period.
No period. No period. It says it right here.
Well, I am not sure that he says it. He shows it that way. So I think it's appropriate to use O period, P period.
No, that's not what it says.
Yeah.
He says that OP.
I'm not going to get into it now. I'll let you read it and interpret it. It's a guidance. It's more than a guidance. It's how to use it. And then if you have another designation, I think tradition tells us to use the OP first and then comma, then the other designation, such as MD or JD. And I think it would be consonant to use whatever initials you use according to that. The next one is just a simple corporate report from the annual report from the state of Idaho. I want you to know that we're incorporated. The last year's late provincial council approved the incorporation of the entity and the 501c3 application and the budget to submit for that application. So I just want to let you know we're working on that. Presently, I have done the 501c3 application. It's now sitting in pay.gov, an RS connection where you fill out the form, and I just need to have the bylaws approved here. One of the things that is worth mentioning is there is some discussion over the, I'm not going to recover it. We made the discussion and the decision last year to incorporate for various reasons. And those who weren't here, you can discuss with others. If you want to recap, please come talk to me. I'm happy to do that, more than happy. Because I want everybody in the room to understand where we're moving. But these are bylaws which are very part of creating a corporation. And we have to have in order to do a 501c3 tax-exempt organization. One of the things that the church does, for those who may know, constitutional law says that if you start a church, go out and plant a new church, you automatically get a 501c3 designation. You don't even need the paperwork. As long as you're preaching and holding services, and you started the church, you can deduct your parishioners that give to you, or your association of the faithful can give to you and get a deduction. But that's not necessarily true with adjunct organizations to the church, or a church in general. We're an adjunct, and I'm using that term instead. We're an association of the faithful. We cannot enjoy that without an application and recognition from the Internal Revenue Service. One of the things that I'm not sure many in this room, I'm glad to hear or talk to you about it, may have belief that the corporation is not the way to go. And I respect that decision, because I wasn't sure about that myself. I can't even put that in words. But the reality is there's 2 or 3 advantages. One, under the laws of the state of Idaho, those who are members of a board of directors of a corporation, and those who enjoy limited liability, except for intentional conduct, such as if you go up and commit fraud or a battery, that kind of thing. So I just want to explain to you that this is an important part of this organization if we want to go this direction. And we've already expressed that last year at Will, and it's in the record, and we've moved on that. And the next step is to approve the bylaws. I'm not going to go too deeply in that now. We'll discuss that in depth tomorrow. And that covers the unless I'm missing something here, which is entirely possible, that covers what was stuffed into these pamphlets. Is there anything else anybody finds? We were supposed to get an orientation from the facility here, and that was when I was going to hope that the air conditioning be turned on, and the lights would light up, and see each other's faces, but that's not the case.
Can we go to the office?
Well, we will when we're done. At this point, I'm just looking at the agenda to make sure I don't record.
Where's Holy Mass going to be at?
I'm sorry?
Where's Holy Mass going to be at? Morning?
Yeah,
Holy Mass will be over at the Nativity Church. Any other questions?
And when you say chapel, that's here?
They call this the chapel.
Okay.
It's actually a conference room right now.
Right. For tomorrow, I'll go
The
somewhere.
funny part is when the first time I saw that, it said chapel. There's a chapel over there, there's a chapel in that old mansion over there, there's a chapel across the street, and this is a chapel too. I'd go up to Jamie and say, Jamie, it's going to be in the chapel, in the old mansion over here.
Mansion chapel.
Yeah, the mansion chapel.
It's actually called the Immaculate Heart of Mary Chapel in the mansion.
Thank you.
It's because you all actually live in school.
You need to type that out.
That was So Mass at there, make note of this, grab your pen. Mass is at 8 o'clock at Nativity.
Not 7:45.
Yeah, not 7:45.
But if we get there at 7:45.
You'll be on time.
Yeah.
Right. And meals are
Really,
at
it's
8:30. So we'll be real
The
early.
lots in the morning are in here?
here.
Yeah. So again, Mass at 8 o'clock, not 7:45. Take note of that. Okay. Any questions at all?
Okay, so I guess, the question I have, we asked Father John last year at our retreat, we made temporary profession. Do we use OP after our name out, or do we need to
And what stage are you at?
information?
Information. Your information.
Yeah.
Profession.
Like,
Temporary.
Oh, there, you
yeah,
made
we're,
promises.
so the 6 members that we all made temporary professions,
Okay, good.
this, and at the end of June.
Yes,
So my question is do we use OP or do we need to wait to use it?
you're free to use it at the temporary profession. Some chapters use it at the time of the novitiate. We are not one of them. But if it was me, I would say at the time of the temporary profession, you're free to use it, according to the rule that the master has put out. Good question. Vicki?
So does this mean there's no coffee until 8:30 tomorrow morning? Oh, okay.
All right, Alana's here louder so everyone.
It opens,
Things in
the
life.
doors open at 7 for coffee, you have 15 minutes.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
I
If you
just
get
love
to the
that.
doors early, you see the
They don't
ladies
open
in
the
there.
doors early, I know from last year.
But if you wait at them, they'll have pity on you.
They won't.
You know, that's more valuable
They
information
did last
than
week.
anything else.
Last year they didn't have to.
The last week they did.
You were here last
That's
week?
good.
Yeah.
Very good. At a retreat. So 7 a.m. coffee. Any other questions, observations?
Logan.
Logan?
With regard to the general absolution, can you clarify something for me? Because I was under the impression that the rule of lay fraternities of St. Dominic did not bind on the pain of mortal or venial sin.
No, I agree, but I think part of it is just to orient our minds and souls to the idea of why why we do this.
This has to do with the chapter meeting. The chapter meetings were also for correction. And so when St. Dominic went into chapter with the brothers, they went and corrected each other with regards to breaking the rules. And so that's how you live. You live by fraternal correction. And so this is sort of a continuation of that.
Very good question. Anyone else? What we'd like to do now, I'd like to
Now we know where it is.
wow. You know, a number of years ago, a chapter got started in Calusa. And it quickly grew, and it has become a really part of, and I wish I could show you on the screen, a picture of Saints Catherine and Vincent at the local fair. Maybe we can get it on the screen tomorrow. But Matt Nelson sent it to me a few weeks ago. It's a picture of about 4 or 5 of them standing around in the fair booth. And the booth is just packed with all kinds of promotional information with St. Paul Street evangelization and other Catholic and Dominican things. And they're all standing around there quite effectively. All of us have served in booths and fairs and stuff in the past, but what a great example. So I'm so proud of them that they did it. And the words and the work that they put into it goes all the way back. You know, Denise Harvey, who was the president before me, often mentioned that she was so impressed with them and loved them. And that's an important part of who we are. So what I would do is invite a motion to approve tonight, based upon their application for approval, to make the chapter of Saints Catherine and Vincent in Calusa, California, I believe near Sacramento, north of Sacramento.
Now it's in Yuba City. So
Yuba City.
it's moved to the city of. It started in Calusa, so that's why I kept that as a traditional place.
Regardless, there you go. And I would enjoy receiving a motion to that effect to approve them as a full-fledged member or chapter of the Lake Provincial Council.
I so move.
So
I said.
Julie St. Andre and Calvin, or is that you, Sharon? Did you refer?
I said.
Sharon, Caesar, second. Any discussion? Hearing none, it's approved. That's the best form of business you can do. So we're clipping right along here, so we can enjoy maybe.
I would review the LPC procedure.
Yeah.
We're going for a particular directory.
Oh, yes. I want to just explain some of the procedure in the particular directory. Let me get my notes. I did review with regard to some of the background on the bylaws and the necessity of bylaws and application. One of the things that, and I don't know if anyone has this view, some object to the church getting involved with what we call the government and it being a part of that and by incorporating that kind of thing. I don't know if I'm touching anyone's thoughts on that or not. I've heard from people about that are outside of this fold, particular fold. But it's of concern if that indeed was going on. One of the things that the church does often is to engage the emperor, so to speak, and to be part of it. We're part of the world, we're not in it in a sense. Our destiny is citizens of heaven. We're walking, as St. Paul says, as ambassadors, but we're ambassadors. What does that mean? We obey the laws, respect the institutions of what we're passing through as we walk through there. But St. Paul is particularly strong in various areas about this. And so I wanted to give you kind of a theological basis for this and to set aside if there are any kind of fears. Not that I'm going to accomplish that, but at least you'll understand some of the thinking. And part of it is the church itself has entered into agreements with states to help facilitate the peace and freedom of the church. You often heard the term that the Holy Father enters into an agreement with the state called a concordat, which is just another type of treaty. More accurately, a way for the church can survive and be respected of its freedom in a state. It's no different here in the sense that many lay organizations that are religious or connected to an order, be it Protestant or Catholic, incorporate for a number of reasons. And one of them is the freedom from liability under a corporate form. So that as long as you're acting in accordance with the laws and the bylaws and not committing intentional acts of malfeasance or misfeasance or intentional conduct such as battery or slander, you are protected from liability as long as you're acting within the umbrella of the organization. At least that's Idaho law, and this corporation is committed to that. We made that decision last year, so that's where we're following. The other advantage, I won't get into that, is we don't pay taxes in Idaho like you do in California. My understanding is the franchise tax down here is as much as $800 or more a year. In Idaho, it's so if you exist and you comply with filing your documents, probably just go. And as long as you obey the laws and its laws. At times that it conflicts. I mean, we have to admit sometimes the church conflicts with the state. But that isn't, we're not in that stage, at least presently. Could it happen? Don't know. But let me give you, and it probably could happen within our generation. But it's something that is always, when St. Paul, this isn't St. Paul, but this is St. Peter. But he said, as many of you recall from Romans 13, he says, be subject to the higher authorities, pay your taxes, obey the law, and bless those who the prosecutors. They help keep the law because they're doing the work of God. That's one to read. Another one out of 1 Peter, it says, and I quote, the subject for the Lord's sake to every human be subject for the Lord's sake to every human institution. Thank you. Whether it be to the emperor as supreme or to governors as sent by him to punish those who do wrong and to praise those who do right. For it is God's will that by doing right you should put to silence the ignorance of the foolish men. Live as free men, yet without using your freedom as a pretext for evil, but live as servants of God. Now listen to this. Honor all men. Love the brotherhood. Fear God. Honor the emperor. So, and you know, it goes without saying, you probably heard it in every homily since you were a kid, that Rome was persecuting the Christians. Well, it came in clumps of time, all the time. But the point is, it was a pretty severe situation. And yet he says, at the time of Peter, honor and pray for the emperor. So that's what we do. And part of it is that, so yes, we live in this world. I've heard some people say that the Lord of this world, it says that in Scripture, the Lord of this world is Satan. But our Lord has put him under he's in control, and he has control of his right foot, has dominion over this situation, and we can call on that dominion to control it, and we must be subject to the society we live in accordance with its norms. So that's nothing morally or canonically or philosophically or judiciously or I think it's just strictly a matter of decision making as to it. Nothing wrong with incorporating in that sense of the word. I respect those who, I just want you to know that part of the discussion last year and what we're going through and why we're doing that presently. I hope this helps and that we can move on. The other great advantage ultimately is we came by unanimous consent. I think Sharon was actually the one that moved. Am I wrong? I don't know, we'll look at the notes tomorrow. But the reality is that we came under the umbrella of a corporation, or under the umbrella of a corporation. The LPC in the future can always come out. It can always become a free association of individuals. It doesn't have to sit in that corporate form forever. These are important realities of the law, and I just want you to know how important that is. Last thing, but not far from least, is that I invite you to, we're going to have time together tonight or tomorrow, and if you have questions for me, frankly, my ears are wide open because I changed my mind about this. And so I just want you to know I want to hear from you, and I'll try my best to answer questions, allay fears, but mostly just simply listen. And, you know, if there's a reason not to do this, then let's find out what it is. Open discussion. I'm not offended by those who disagree. I invite it. That's the way it's taught, by the way, at least in civil society. Any questions at all? Observations? I can't believe it.
So you just wait till we get you alone.
Ah, there you go. Well, you know, when the room of Dominicans falls silent, you're going to, what?
I know.
Any other questions about the agenda or anything?
I think it might be important to say that they really should be through this.
Yes, that's right. Oh, and I'm sorry, I was going to mention the particular directory. Kind of got off into a different fold there, but it's in your pamphlet is the particular directory. And for those who haven't been in LPC before, this is what governs who we are within this province, particular in the sense particular to the Western Province. So each province has its own particular directory or statute relative to how it governs itself. So the 4 provinces of the United States have each their own rules, which are approved by the local provincial and ultimately the master or the staff. One of the things, and I don't want to cover it too deeply because I wanted to spark discussion after the fact, and between now and the time we started going through it, but we looked at some of the language that has been used in the past, and I didn't necessarily agree with this, but I've been persuaded by just good sense that we need to conform the language within the particular directory to the traditional use and meaning in addition to the rule. One thing I want to say, I feel relatively strong about this. No, I feel real strong. One of the realities is when our chapter first got started, it's hard to believe it's been 25 years ago. We had some of the leaders of the LPC would come to Boise and very nicely say, you're going to do it this way. It's going to be done this way, or this way. I don't want to say anything because actually I didn't always disagree, but in other words, we want to be a chapter, we want to comply with the rules, but at the end of the day, we make the decisions. Okay? We're responsible. The council, whoever was in control at the time. This makes sense? And so there's a certain freedom in the rule. But what we're doing here is associating the definition of these with the rule or traditional use. And I'll give you a concession before we get done. But if you look at page 5 of the document, and we'll get more deeply into this, the term chapter. And you know, for years I've heard Father Augustine and other priests talk about, we have our chapter every so often when we discuss things. And so the chapter is the monthly meeting of the members. It's actually a meeting. It's a gathering together. It's not the chapter meeting. So when it says that the definition, the monthly meeting of the members of the regional or local fraternity. So chapter is the actual action of having a meeting. The council is the body, and this makes sense, of fraternity officers. Now, before I get into fraternity, I want to explain it's just the council. It's the same as we had before. The next one talks about the general declarations of the Master Order, which over years have kind of been attached to the rule. And then you have fraternity, and you're saying, well, we're changing the name from chapter to fraternity. There's 2 or 3 realities. One that, the third one would be my conception. The first one is the rule change back in 2019 and uses the term fraternities of St. Dominic. And I was not in favor of that. But it's also a certain consistency in the law that we need to pay attention to. And the other thing is that fraternity, that, I'll just go to the concessions. One is that no one, particularly me, is going to stand at the threshold of your chapter meeting and say, use the name fraternity. It's not going to happen. Why? Anybody tell me why? Which section of the rule is it? Section 21. And it is this, that unto itself, the chapter governs itself. So there's certain realities that we're not going to stand at that and kind of pound things in. There are certain thresholds, obviously. Are you following the rule? Are you living a Dominican life? Are you living... The question for when people are not getting along in the chapter is, are they living in accordance with the community life required of the rule? It's not, is everybody getting along? Is everything following, are they calling their name chapter or fraternity, that kind of thing? You get my point? There's a certain freedom in the rule built in, and that's something that comes from God. Freedom matters to me very deeply. But at the same time, there's certain conformance. It was, I think it was Washington who called it ordered liberty. Beautiful term, in which it assumes that freedom of each individual human, but it conforms to standards according to law or that type of thing. So that's what we have, an ordered liberty here. So we use the term fraternity lawfully. If you happen to use the term chapter, I'm going to change. I want March chapter to change, but I'm not going to press it on you. I hope this is helpful. We're changing.
Well, what we won't do, though, is we're not going to say fraternity, or if you call it chapter. We're just going to call it fraternity.
Right, from now on. Yeah, administration of it.
So there was a time when we said, in a particular rectory, and this comes up as well, president or moderator or prior. We're getting away from this idea of having you choose your own adventure with regards to language. So we're going to say these are the terms that we're going to use. These are the meanings of the terms. You can use whatever terms you want, right? You choose your pronouns, but we're not going to choose them for you. Okay? So we're going to choose those terms that have meaning and the set meaning. So that's, I think, where we're also going.
Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And there's a certain freedom and conformity too.
Yeah, it's a two-way street, and I think ultimately freedom respects that two-way street. You know, the law and the freedom that comes with it. The LPC is going to become the lay provincial chapter. I mean, it's if the PD passes. I'm going to just tell you that. The formal meeting of the fraternity represents on an annual periodic basis in accordance with a particular director. That means this, what we're doing here. Lay provincial council, the officers elected by it, that's these folks that you elected. That's the council. And we also have used the term LPC, executive council, which just means those who are officers. The rule of the lay fraternity of St. Dominic, that's actually the title. If you look it up, that's the title. It explains what that is. It's the fundamental constitution of our order, or lay order. Postulants, that's defined. Novices, I think nothing different there. We're moving away from the term inquirers for various reasons, to be honest with you. Postulants just simply comes to postulate. I mean, people are questioning. I think it's just another step. In other words, they're still questioning, do I belong here in this order? The statutes collectively include the rule, the declarations which are attached to the rule, a particular directory and its guidelines which we're working on this coming year, and the Articles of Incorporation, the bylaws of the Western Dominican Council, Inc. One of the things that if you look at the bylaws carefully, it says if any of the rules conflict, the rule wins. Or, the LPC wins, that kind of thing. So I doubt there's any conflicts in this, I just want you to know. I'm talking about conflict of law, or conflict of,
I just want to make sure this is clear. So, for us, we have a checkbook that says, Blessed for our Angelico Chapter, Lay Dominicans. We also have documents that we filed with the state of California, that we have periodic reporting requirements that says chapter. So we're not going to be going back and trying to amend these legal and financial documents.
totally right. I get it. Why? We're incorporated, we see it's the third order of St. Dominic, and I'm not going to go back. Then I have to turn around and contact the IRS, and I have to
We can call it.
refile. So you call it legally what historic, just want you to be informed of what's going on, what our objective is to make all these things look consistent. Change takes time, and I'm not even sure you want to change it, but time does change things. At the same time, it kind of recognizes that freedom of discretion in keeping it as it has been. Any questions? Oh, Julie, sorry.
Hi. I'm not really sure it's a question, but I'm sort of thinking it's more of a suggestion.
Yes.
When you sent this to us, and the fraternity members, the members of
The chapter.
our unit, were a little confused as to what changed. I wondered if it would be, they had to go, would it be easier to send us a highlighted copy of what's changed?
Oh, boy.
Pardon?
As the person who did it, it's like a word here, punctuation there, a whole section taken out and removed. If we had sent you marked up copies, strike through, I don't think it would have been.
It's indecipherable.
You
Have you ever
could.
worked with what they call
Yeah.
red?
Yeah, but I just mean like, even if you strike something out, you just put struck or whatever, you don't have to show us that. But because a lot of people aren't gonna realize what's actually changed, especially new people that, are sort of in that, they have 1 foot here and 1 foot here. And, old people like me who still have 1 foot here and it's gonna,
I wouldn't admit to that.
well, I'm sorry, I'm gonna admit to
No,
this.
I know your sense of humor, so it's okay. I think, just a sec, one of the things that's important, it's not only the confusion over the style, because I use those all the time in my business, and it can get drove, right? So it goes back to read it, to understand it. Not everybody's going to read it. Somebody in the chapter will know it, and that's what, you know who that person is, or a group of people, and have them, and invite everyone to read it and go through it so it makes sense. It has to make sense, and that's our objective. If we were in a office with 10 people, it would be different. But when we have all these hundreds of people involved, it's a very difficult prospect. It's another document to review.
That's understandable.
And we spent a lot of time, and I'm not crying about it, it's just reality.
When will we be able to have access of this online?
Well, we'll publish it as soon as we approve, if we approve it. So it'll be published to all the chapters.
The old chapter is still online. The old particular directory is still online.
Yeah.
So what you can do while you're reading it is just read alongside both.
Yeah.
And you'll see that, the language changed, some things were added. There's a whole section that's a Roman numeral section that's been added to this. So you could, I do recommend that, looking at both sides. But I don't think it would be helpful to have the strike-through one. And really, this is the only time that we're going to go through the whole thing and fix it, because hopefully from now on, we'll be actually looking at this maybe every year or so. Since this was 2009, really, you probably should be looking at this every year, and then the strike-through version will make a lot more sense, right?
Right.
But it just won't make sense in the whole document. It just hasn't been done in a while. And so I think that was the real big issue. That was the problem.
That's a good point.
Well, even now, you're painting sort of broad strokes of what has changed.
Right.
We may not be able to cover all of those broad strokes in this discussion. It might be helpful if there's like just a one-page or two-paragraph summary of those broad areas that have been changed and people can.
No, that's work.
And maybe we can do that for the chapters when this goes back to the chapters.
Right.
Maybe that would be the
Cover
document.
page.
Yeah.
Just a broad strokes of these,
Yeah.
just in general, what was
It's a
done.
great idea, like describing what naming and changing the definition. Roger?
I guess my question about the terminology from fraternity.
Sorry, my eyes are.
Is there a historical reason for that as well, or is it just the fact that we changed the name to the Rule of the Lay Fraternities of St. Thomas?
Well, the order itself changed the name.
Yeah.
The master did, number one. Number two is, I started looking at the PD because of there were unclear disciplines inside of it. They're very unclear what step to do. And it occurred in a situation we think was like, wow, there's no parameter here. And sometimes you need that in order, when there's decision-making to be made. And so that we tightened up some of the language or added something that helped with that. So that was the ignition. But in doing that, I cracked open the rule and looking at radically changed since in 2019 to these words. So we got to look into that. I talked to Father and he said, we need, which made sense to me. As soon as he said it, we need to conform the language in the PD to its traditional use. Because the order itself uses the term chapter differently, council differently, and that's what caused that to happen. That's the history of it in kind of the sum and substance.
So it conforms to the order.
Yeah, will conform to the order.
So for example, fraternity, for me, has the equivalent of priory. Okay? We don't call our communities chapters, but we do have chapter meetings in our priory. And so that's sort of the equivalent for the laity. So everything in the lay particular directory should have an equivalent in our Dominican order. Of sorts. Yeah, that can only go so far, but this is one of the things that would help to conform that.
First question, this is my very first time here.
Welcome.
We're a proto-fraternity in St. Michael the Archangel. So I don't know, as a representative of my chapter fraternity, I don't know what protocol. Do I get to participate? That's the first question.
Well, number one is the rules on that are yes.
Okay.
The only thing that you're deprived of is
Can't vote. Okay.
Can't vote.
My hand
But
is
I
in my
invite-
lap for voting.
Yeah, I invite motions and seconds, and that might be a little bit extra, what's the term? Anyway, in addition to.
Right.
But, and comments and questions, so you're very much a part of this one and you're.
Great. I'm happy I'm in the back row that's for the voting.
So that's another admonition I forgot earlier.
On fraternity, on that question, on that the thing, I'd love to just say one quick thing. So I just spent about a year in the UK and just was in Rome for a month, right? So everywhere they use the term fraternity, everywhere. And they use the word postulant and novice and profession. And the reasoning is, in other places, like the Blackfriars, for example, the reasoning is that all three orders are equally Dominican. So there is something lovely about the conformity of all three orders.
Right.
And if we look at the historical rules, so in our chapter fraternity, we've read all the rules of the third order, all of them. And fraternity is the normative term, right?
That's very interesting.
So just
Very interesting.
throwing that out as, and I personally, from the point of view of our chapter fraternity, we like conformity to the rest of the order. That's sort of our
That's a
personal
really good
preference.
point. And that's kind of an emphasis on, when the master came, he wanted to meet with the lady 2 years ago, and I had just taken office. I think it was on October 2nd of 2022. And I got a phone call from the father and said, you need to come, and it was like less than a week or something, which is great. And he wanted to meet with us 3 times, twice in the meeting, as we were closing the meeting. And then the next morning at breakfast, he got up from his chair and walked over to me and said, those 3 times, you are part of a family, and you need to treat it as a family. So, in applying that, we apply that, we understand. This is nothing new. I don't view it as anything new. I view it as the terms that there are, if we're a family, there are adults in the family. Sorry about the rough analysis. But we're somewhat like the children. And that we do need to. So the use of traditional and modern terms are fine. I use my preference, traditional terms, the third order, but I will always use the term laity, Dominican laity. I will use the term fraternities or like terms. You always put them together. That's my stuff. But it emphasized the fact that we're in order. That's what this is all about. And in that order, we have a certain symmetry, but also distinctions. And one of them is we are not priests. We are not religious. And that's why. So thank you. I love that you comment. Thank you.
Well, also, John, it's like the other 3 provinces here in the U.S. use those terms.
Right. Yeah, they do. We're kind of, I wouldn't say behind, just not. Logan?
I have one quick clarification following up from that previous statement. If we're talking about traditional language and official definitions from the church, as in the rule and above, I noticed one possible misalignment in the acting out of the particular directory, flowing down from the rule.
Yes.
As compared to what the church officially defines the term to be. And Father Highlander, I refer to you here because you have the mindset of the friar's rule. I wonder, is this the right time to bring this up?
It's fine as long as it's germane to our discussion.
If it's about terminology, then yes.
Yes.
Yes, that's what we're talking about now.
Because on page 6, Part A, number 5, daily recitation of the rosary. I think most of us understand that to be a third part of the rosary. But the manual for indulgences defines the rosary to be the whole.
I guess you mean it's a chapter of the rosary, not the full rosary.
Right, that's what I'm saying. And this is also the language used in the general declarations and the rule.
Where are you at? Again, I'm sorry.
Can you repeat where we're looking? I'm sorry.
Absolutely. Page 6. Tell us the Dominican line.
So use the letters.
Page
1,
6,
A,
A5.
A5.
This is my only issue.
It's fine. Exactly. Explain it.
Okay.
What's the question?
Yeah. So now we know where we are. He's gonna say it now.
Sorry for Lord.
Good.
So I was reading the manual for indulgences to get the official definition of the rosary, so that I could follow the rule more accurately, the particular direction more accurately. The rosary had 2 separate definitions. It had the rosary, which consisted of the full, the joyful, sorrowful, and glorious, and then it had the third part of the rosary, a third of the rosary, which, from my experience in the lay fraternities, which agrees minimal, from my experience in lay fraternities, it seems that what is being practiced is the third part of the rosary.
Okay.
So I just thought maybe that could be either a definition or a slight inclusion in there of just a third part, if that's the intention.
Then would we need to include the definition of the whole definition?
No.
Or say it's a third part? I mean, it is a new reader.
The third part is 5 decades.
That has, I think at this point, that question would be better raised tomorrow.
Yes, but we did think about this actually when we went through it. So yeah, that is a question for tomorrow, because that's not a terminological question.
Oh, okay.
Don't forget, because we are going to be doing the business tomorrow. Great observation, I raises questions. Part of the thing that you have to realize, one of the things to realize, you don't want this thing to be too long. And that's what I was trying to do with reality. I don't know. But I went back and looked at St. Joseph's. That's the Eastern Province, and it's 70 pages long.
Okay, okay.
Don't quote me on that.
So
It's long.
this meeting will be now called the Lake Provincial Chapter.
Correct.
So
Under this.
on page 12, number 6 at the top, it says the Lake Provincial Council Representative. Does that need to be?
That needs to be changed.
Chapter?
That needs to be changed. You said 12?
Page 12, number 6.
Number 6. Page 12, number 10. Yeah.
It's so natural to read this, like that.
You know what's funny about
Five.
this? You can go through these and you can change everything. You think you got it, you don't got it.
That's why we meet together.
That's why we meet together. I do,
It's the same letters.
no, I know.
Yeah.
We're still the LPC, correct?
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll make the change.
Yeah.
Um,
But chapter.
Any other questions, kind of on the generic level? I mean, that's on a, if you have questions about it, read it, talk to me, ask me, or any one of the council members, particularly Vicki, O'Brien, myself, or Father Augustine. We're the ones that are the PD commission and work on it. It was engaged last year. I do want to explain that once it's finally approved tomorrow, it will very soon go out to all the chapters, and that's when it can take. I'll explain the procedure for that. Once it's adopted, it goes out to all the chapters and the priors and other leaders, particularly LPC rep. And the second step is that this is set out in chapter 6 of the current PD. But I'm sorry. Each chapter has 6 months to approve by simple majority. So we pass it by simple majority tomorrow, if we do. And then it goes out, and the simple majority of the chapters, the chapter by simple majority says yes or no. And then within 6 months, if there's 2/3 of the total chapters in the province say yes, then it's approved. And then they notify the LPC secretary of that approval. Each chapter has a responsibility to report back to the secretary. We approve, we disapprove, whatever the result was. And that's by simple majority. Once it hits 2/3 of approval, then it comes back to you and next year. And then by 2/3 of the LPC next year, if it's approved, then it goes to the prior provincial. It could go to the master, but it will definitely go to the prior provincial. Upon his approval, it'll go into effect. And then, it comes back to
No, the prior provincial's council.
prior provincial's council. Yeah.
The provincial and his council.
So they discuss it, approve or not.
Yeah, so if we discuss this tomorrow and changes are made, then those changes need to be made before we can actually vote on it, right?
No. The changes would be redlined, literally on the document itself. Unless you submit, typewritten, extended. We can make changes that are grammatical or insert language or delete, small parts of language. We can do that. We'll have a master draft. It's not easy, but that's how it's done. In this process, we're not obviously, although you have legislative authority under the particular directive, we do not have that capacity in great detail. So tomorrow's it. You gotta get it right. That's a great question, Calvin.
I had a question on the process of approval. My understanding was when they did the 2009 TD, they had to have it translated into Latin before they could submit it to Rome. Does that still apply to us or not?
No.
No.
Who has the Latin of the 2009 particular record?
Tony Belice, the person I know of.
I'll ask him.
Sims is the one that drafted the final edit, yeah. I don't know about, no, it's always me.
So I just want to be clear that it's going to take 2 years before this is finalized?
It could take less than one, but
Oh,
yeah.
less than
No,
one?
no,
I mean, it would take 1 year and then it goes to the provincial as soon as the act's on it becomes effective.
It does have to go to the master plan.
Oh, it does.
Because that's in the particular, that's.
It's in the guide, it's in
statutes.
the,
It's in the statute.
it's in the general declaration.
Yeah, the general declaration.
Alana?
How many months do the chapters have to respond?
6 months.
6 months?
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Are we able to follow it before it's approved, or is that not allowed?
If it's the consent of the LPC, yes. But it's not, you're gonna have, if you have substantial disagreement, we won't. Julie, did you have your hand up?
Me? No.
Oh, no. Yeah, that's not it. It's a good question. Anybody else? I know this is a lot to digest, but I think it'll be interesting. And we can discuss where we're headed. I mean, part of looking at when you look at your plan of life, so to speak, you're looking at where we're headed and how we want to change things. For instance, one of the things that's been proposed is that we place a formation promoter on the EC to keep the formation direction going, to keep it fresh and going instead of just dropping the ball every few years. And part of that is to make that person a coordinator and not a commander, but a coordinator of information. In other words, they're not going to go to your chapter and order you to follow certain formats of formation, but they're going to help you to facilitate that. And bringing them into the EC itself helps them to know what the mind is of the LPC and where we're headed and that kind of thing. That's one of the recommendations to read through. The real important thing. We'll also discuss tomorrow what the plans for the Formation Commission by that act. So, now we're over time. I'm yakking. Any questions? Great discussion. Thank you. Now let's go back to
Cover and adoration of the church.
Want to have it or which church?
The
We'll
chapel.
all go together, we'll show you.
Okay, now we're at recess. Anything else? A motion to recess for the evening? Okay, recess motion is automatic. No objection.
Dominus vobiscum, et cum Spiritus